She stopped the ute in front of the gate and pulled on the handbrake. The downside to driving alone on a farm was the gates. As kids, the job had fallen to her and her brothers, Thomas and Alex, as the passengers for their dad. They'd grumbled about it back then, and it wasn't any more fun now. As she drove through and then closed the gate behind her, she took a moment to look across the paddocks and let out a small sigh. It was so dry. As a rule, the coast was greener than inland Australia, but the drought that had continued its stranglehold for 2 years hadn't spared the coastal areas. Sam, like the rest of the country, had watched as feed dried up and dams evaporated, leaving livestock to fade away in paddocks and crops to die in the fields. The whole country was praying for rain, and yet it hadn't come, and there was no sign that it would. The Murphy property was a small family farm, but the effects of the dry were starting to show here too. Sam had noticed it the last time she'd been home for a visit. The usually lush green grass was faded and the trees looked wilted. But this time, it was blindingly obvious that things had got worse. What little was left of the grass was brown. The dams were almost dry, and her parents, like most of their neighbours, were almost totally dependent on hand-feeding livestock. Sam pushed away from the gate and climbed back into the ute. She drove along the dirt track through the paddock, worn by years of cattle and wheels, then followed the road as it wound its way across the lower flats and through a gully between two hills. This was the place that always brought back a sharp, happy memory. It was at this spot on the property that Honey, her very first pony, would always pick up speed as she caught the first sight of home on a ride. Sam would have to hold on tight and be ready as the little golden palomino lurched from a docile walk to a full gallop in the blink of an eye. As she drove out of the gully, Sam saw the house further up the hill, and she smiled. It wasn't grand, just a 3-bedroom fibro and brick farmhouse with a veranda, but it was home. No matter how many years passed, this little house would always hold the memories of her childhood and family within its walls. Now that she was a grown woman with children of her own, she could appreciate just how special her childhood had been here. As a teenager, she'd taken this place for granted, been impatient to leave. She wanted excitement and adventure. But as an adult, she enjoyed the simple beauty in a slower pace. Sam hung her dad's hat on the peg inside the back door and kicked off her boots. It was strange coming into the kitchen and finding it so quiet. Usually her mother was in here cooking or on the phone to someone about one committee or another. Now it was silent, except for the echoing tick of the wall clock and the soft hum of the fridge. Washing her hands and taking out the beer, Sam went outside and sank into one of the rustic old cane chairs that had been part of the veranda furniture for as long as Sam could remember. They were deep, with the perfect armrest height, and had recently undergone a facelift with a new coat of white paint and some brightly coloured pink, green and blue striped fabric on the padding. She released a long sigh as she put her feet up on the chair across from her and leaned back. If her father were here right now, he would tease her. She'd barely done half of what he did every day around the place, and she was exhausted. Well, she'd never claimed to be a farmer. Up until a month ago, she'd been a boutique homeware store owner, a far cry from pushing bales of hay off the back of a dilapidated old ute. There had been a few significant changes in Sam's life lately. The business, the marriage, and here she was, a recently divorced mother of 2 almost grown children. She frowned at the thought. She had a 21-year-old daughter, for goodness sake. How was that even possible? It didn't feel like so long ago that Mackenzie had sat here unwrapping Christmas presents when she was 3 and Brooklyn was just a baby. Now, Brooke was 19 and both girls had moved out of home and were living their own lives. There was no denying it. Sam felt old. As she stared out into the distance, the sound of the dogs barking was suddenly followed by a commotion of loud screeching. Bloody guinea fowl. Her mother's latest pride and joy, and Sam had forgotten to lock the stupid things away. She jumped to her feet, hopping around as she struggled to pull her boots back on. The guinea fowl had become something of a hobby for her mother in recent